Welcome back to Triforce podcast.
That's right.
The hottest gaming news.
Oh, the hottest day.
The hottest gaming takes. And the spiciest chat with the oldest men in gaming.
There are older, but we're up there for sure. We gotta be.
Yeah. We are up there. There's those granddad streamers you see.
Yeah.
Like
God bless
proper
them.
old men. Yeah. And they're sort of...
It's nice to see them still going.
I don't know how much chat is just being nice to them and how much chat is just fucking with them.
Yeah.
That's my concern. Don't mess with old people. That'll be me in like a year. So, you know,
Right.
It's kind of it's harder. Some old people, you can mess with, but I think generally it's harder to mess with old people. They're kind of bulletproof, right? Like
I don't think they give as many fucks, so they don't
really
get as upset.
don't.
But it's certainly, I think it's easier to confuse and confuddle them.
True.
They're definitely
with
on the
things
edge.
that everybody else seems to take for granted internet-wise.
Yeah, I feel like they've got years of experience that should make them wiser, but they also have many less years to have to suffer the consequences of their actions.
God, yeah, I suppose that's one way to look at it.
Fuck it. Let's just shoot anyone who comes onto my land.
God.
It kind of does just get to that point, though, you know? I think the older you get, you know, you're a little bit more protective of your compound, wherever that may be, you know, even
You're scared.
Yeah, and you get a lot more frightened of teens.
And you don't understand.
Yeah, teenagers
your
really...
brain is calcified.
I think teenagers really became scary to older people. I'm not sure specifically why. Presumably they've always been teenagers, one would assume.
I think it's culture. It's TV that's given them the idea. I mean, we've all seen it, like teenagers, but in my experience they tend to prey on people their own age, or at least what they think is their own age, right? Like when I got mugged, it was like someone who was about my age in London, and like this was obviously when I was a teenager, but
you got properly mugged.
Well, not really.
Mugged off, or just like fully mugged.
Someone wanted my phone, you know, this is back in the day though.
Right.
This is when phones
Did they have a weapon?
He said he did, but he wasn't going to show it in the middle of a busy train station. So
you're in the middle of a busy train station.
He might not have even had a weapon.
You gave him the phone.
I didn't give him the phone. No, I ran away.
Oh, yeah, that's the wise move. What's he going to do?
Were you screaming, like high-pitched screaming? Help!
Yes.
Help!
Yes, there was.
Nice.
It was a whole thing. I mean, I've told the story
Did it make
before,
it
but
in the paper? Was it in the paper?
I don't think it was that kind of... I think it was an everyday occurrence.
Breaking news, screeching man alarms travelers.
Tore the cuff of his turtleneck mid-screech whilst running through Paddington Station.
I felt like the kid who was mugging me was about as out of depth as I was in the whole situation. It was almost like his first day on the job as a mugger.
He has a turtleneck as well. He just looks exactly like you. Like slightly younger version mugs you.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Have you ever had that? You ever been beaten up or anything? You ever had a fight?
I've been in a couple of fights, but I may have started them both.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
P-flags.
They weren't that long ago either.
Yeah. Not serious ones. I was a bit mouthy in high school one time, and the high school bully, beat me and my friends. It was funny though, because it was like there were more of us than him, but because he was so notorious, we let him beat us all up so that he wouldn't do it again. But like he didn't really beat us up that badly. He just kind of chased us all around, and then that was it.
I think a lot of the time the school bullies, I remember that the bully in our year at school was a very lonely guy. He didn't really have any friends. In fact, he didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
And I know that his big brother was extremely mean to him, would set traps for him around the house.
Good Lord.
Would wait for him to come home from school and then just launch himself at him and beat him up.
Yeah.
And I know that he'd come from boarding school, where he said it was, you know, you literally had to fight every day or you'd just be bottom of the barrel, like prison, essentially. A pretty rough boarding school. I mean, you think of boarding schools as all being like those sort of
chamber music
and
Tarquin candelabras and stuff. Yeah,
but it's essentially an all boys boarding school. I'm sure it's extremely rough at a girls as well, but I only know people who've been to a boys one. It's just fighting all the time. And that testosterone, and boys all stuck in together for fucking weeks and weeks at a time, no break from each other. It's a pretty violent place. But yeah, so we went my Dungeons and Dragons club, which we had most lunchtimes because we fucking hated going outside. we would be in the school playing Dungeons and Dragons, and he would always come in. He wasn't meant to be in the school, but he would just come in and tip, throw our dice on the floor and tip our character sheets onto the floor and shout at us and stuff. And then, but I could tell that he would always watch for a while. And my impression was that he desperately wanted to play, but knowing that we would never invite him to play because we were all terrified of him, he sort of acted out in that way to sort of get our attention. And I mean, he just used to stomp around on his own looking for people to bully. But I don't think that he was. This just feels
like you've watched Stranger Things, and
did that happen in Stranger Things?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. I think it's a very common thing.
They start off kind of like dicks, and then they end up being slow. Because there's this guy who's like in the first season, he's like a super creepy guy, like taking pictures of girls, voyeuristically, and then he gets. They slowly shape him into a sort of nice main character.
Well, that sadly didn't happen in this instance.
No.
Yeah.
I guess it has to be influenced from somewhere, right? People who write these shows, if they've had experiences with bullies or whatever. I mean, like the bully that Durian described sounds like a lot like the one at our school. Didn't really have any friends, or the friends that he did have were just people that, he previously bullied. That just sort of like fell into line with them. He had an older brother who was also a big bully, so they were they had like a dynasty of bullying in the local neighborhood. But funnily enough, like if you didn't really have anything to do with him, he wouldn't just start bullying you like for no reason, I guess, or at least I feel like that's the case. Like, maybe that's not the case for everybody. But like in our case, like we were mouthing off a little bit, and we shouldn't have been. But the whole thing was just like so comical anyway. But then after that, he didn't really bully us again. It was just like he got it out of his system, and that was it. We never bumped into him again. We never really had any altercations with him or anything.
Yeah,
it was fine.
Is weird. Like, it's weirdly familiar because of the D&D aspects. That's a big thing in Stranger. I just wonder if you are like one of the kids from Stranger Things in the 80s.
No, I'm far less interested.
And maybe that's why you lost all your hair, because you went through this whole thing.
Yeah, that's a hindsight reconstruction of a kid in the 80s, right?
Yeah, you're like a grown-up version of one of the kids who's like suffered this stressful event. A little bit like the It,
the clown
movie where they all grow up, don't they, for the sort of second chapter. So the first one is when they're kids, and the second one is when they're all adults, you see, and some of them have even sort of blanked out this traumatic thing that happened, and they don't even quite believe.
The hell do you blank that out?
It happened.
Like a full-on murdering clown, and also demon clown. Yeah, I choose not to think about it much.
They also cut. There was a scene in the book because there's a girl who's part of their little group, and at the end of the first part, when they're all still kids, they all have a big gangbang with her, and then get on back with their lives.
That's in the book.
That from the movies.
That's in the book. Yeah,
yeah, that's probably a good idea not to have that. But there is Stranger Things as well. There is a bully character as well called Steve, who is like an unlikable jock kind of guy.
Yeah,
and then he becomes like a good guy as well. Like it's strange how obviously. I guess at the beginning of Stranger Things, there's no kind of actual villains, so the villains are just themselves. They find that there's this more, I guess, sort of threatening, danger to them all that they then have to fight against.
Well,
together.
like in the Shadow Realm or whatever. I've only watched the first 2 seasons of it, so
yeah. I mean, everyone's again with Stranger Things. I feel like either you've seen it or it's like through osmosis.
Does Barbara die in the first one? I can't remember.
Don't spoil it. I haven't seen any of it. I saw the first series, but I think Barb dies in episode 2 or 3 or something like that.
Yeah, she goes. She gets sucked into the pool or whatever, into the Shadow Realm, right? But did they find her dead body in the Shadow Realm as well? I can't remember.
I don't know.
I don't remember. Again, now it's all blending with Twin Peaks.
My youngest watched the whole thing. She became obsessed with Stranger Things. She watched it and she loved it. She said it was like the best show ever.
Well, yeah,
it is good.
I mean, it's probably like the only show she's ever seen as well, to be fair.
That's not true.
Oh, right. Okay.
She loves TV.
She watches TV all the fucking time.
She really loves TV. But she watches like The Office and Parks and Rec and shit.
Oh,
like
okay, okay. It's like anytime my son plays something, he's like, "This is the best thing I've ever played." It's like, yeah, well, you haven't fucking played anything. Of course, it's going to be it's like the first food you eat. This is the best food I've ever eaten. Yeah, I know. It's like the first as well. I always find it funny. Like it's just like he proclaims that this is the greatest thing. It's like, God, wait till you play some other stuff. You know, he's saying like Fall Guys. Like Fall Guys is the best game ever made. Okay, buddy. It's all right. It's not that great. Like there's better games out there. Jeez, you know. Just wait till he plays Tarkov. Holy crap, it's gonna blow his mind.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Or Magic the Gathering.
Or Magic the Gathering online arena. Holy crap.
Well into that. It's really hard, but it
blow
is
his
fun.
damn mind.
You know what else I played over the last few days? Fucking War Thunder.
Yeah, I
played War Thunder.
I saw you playing that, and I thought to myself, I know how this goes. I also played War Thunder for a bit. It hooks you in a bit. It is pretty fun. Interesting to see how long you play it for. Like,
probably not long.
Yeah, it does get repetitively tedious.
Yeah, no, I
quickly.
can see that. So the idea with War Thunder, for anyone that hasn't played it, I'm sure you all have. It's like tanks, planes, and ships.
Yeah.
And the battles takes like a minute to queue into a battle. It lasts about 6-7 minutes. End of game, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
And depending on how you do, you get points to unlock new tanks or ships or planes, and you can juice them up a little bit and train your crew and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of progress. But if you progress too much, you get better tanks, you just get bumped up into a harder cap.
Yeah.
And now you're playing against lads who are also in bigger tanks. So there's really not the sort of benefit to getting a bigger tank. People are like, oh, I really want to get into the so-and-so. And I'm like, but then you'll be up against other also good tanks.
Yeah.
So it's kind of pointless. But it's just a time sink. It was just a bit of fun, really.
Yeah, no, it is good for that, for sure. Like if you're in between games and you just want something that you can jump into quickly, like you don't sit in queues forever. There's lots of buttons to press on the menu, but like the gameplay itself is like quite fun, right?
Yeah,
like
and there's no
and
communication with your teammates. Like you don't have to worry about people being toxic. You just roll around in a tank.
Yeah. It's like the Battlefield games. It's like such a huge. There's so much going on. Like if you really wanted to make an impact, you could with like a small squad, but you don't have to. You can just roll around, die quickly, get right back in. It's like it's not a problem.
Get in, and then if you do well, you can in the tank battles they'll offer you like, would you like to get in a plane for a bit? And you get like a minute or whatever flying around in a bomber. It's quite fun. It's just and they can be very cinematic.
It's an MMO, right? Though I mean, it doesn't even. It's not unashamedly an MMO, right? The idea is that it keeps you in, it hooks you in, and you don't play anything else.
Right.
And,
it tries to, yeah, for sure, and successfully. So I mean, there's definitely some big time armchair admirals out there playing it like full time. It's that kind of game too. It's just like the progression and the unlocks and all that crap, right? It hooks people in and hooks their wallets in as well.
There's so many new cool games that I played during Tiny Teams, and I just felt like that was what we did last week. It was just this great opportunity to test out hundreds of new things, and to some extent it burned me out a little bit in that my attention span became super like low. Like I couldn't. Like, you know, it's almost like I've you know, when I did this thing where I played a new board game every day, and after a while I was like, man, I've played all of them. And it felt like I had played all of them because it was very few and far between when there was a mechanic that I was like, oh, okay, so this is like that bit from Azul, but this bit from Viticulture or whatever, you know. I was almost like at this point where every game was just this other game, right, with differences. And so like I found it pretty... When I was going through all the 900 submissions for Tiny Teams and trying to suggest ones to put into the thing, Alex actually played every single one, which is mad. Whereas I went through and just played the ones that I thought looked interesting, but I still ended up playing hundreds of games. And it was really cool to try that new stuff. But now I'm just like, I'm finding myself getting bored after an hour in any game. It's really weird.
Because I think maybe you've just spent so long having to play a bunch of games that you've just forgotten how to enjoy games. Like if you having to look for a specific, it's almost like being a reviewer. Like I've yet to meet someone who's a reviewer for either films or games or books or whatever who isn't deeply cynical and kind of burned out on enjoying that thing. There's the bloody doorbell. Hold on.
God, that's such a grand doorbell. Like I heard that perfectly. It's like dong,
the mansion
dong,
mansion flags.
Yeah, you can hear it echoing through the halls of the study.
You know, it's like a cheap plastic box, though, right?
Absolutely,
like stuck on the wall.
Those ones always sound really good, though, right?
I know somehow.
Yeah,
it's very British to have a doorbell like that, though.
Yeah, they talk the talk, but do they walk the walk? Like they're not.
Did you play? I saw you played Cult of the Lamb and Farthest Frontier.
Yes,
which are both expensive indies that came out this week.
Yeah, both good as well. Farthest Frontier is nice, and Cult of the Lamb is really good. It's great.
Okay,
it's
I'll pick them up.
Got lots of nice little mechanics and stuff, and it's beautiful. God, the sound, the animations, the graphics in Cult of the Lamb is really nice. Like I love the art style and everything too. It's good. Just feels like a nice game to play. But
it looks very, Binding of Isaac style.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, but there's a lot of there's a whole mechanic around building up your little compound and the followers like worshiping you and unlocking stuff through the power that they give you. The Twitch integration with it is really good too. You can hold raffles to have followers named after people in chat, so they can opt into it, and then you can like do stuff with them to gain more power, like murder them, imprison them if they start to get like a bit unruly. You can sacrifice them in a ritual. Like it's really good. They can die of old age as well. You bury them and then they resurrect after a couple of days. It's a bit bonkers. It's funny though.
Does it feel anything like Don't Starve, or is it more like arena-y battle-y?
There's definitely a focus on like the battle-y stuff. There's like a little mini game called is it Knuckles or Knuckle Dusters, like a dice game that you can play against various little NPCs that you find, which is quite fun. It's like a dice, like I don't know. It's super easy when you play it. It's fun though. And then there's like a little fishing mini game in it. There's all sorts of shit. Like it's good. It's really fun. It's a nice one, and like nice little progressions and stuff as well. You upgrade your buildings. Like there's like quality of life stuff for your compound. Like you can eventually unlock outhouses and janitors because they're all your little cultists just shit on the ground and get unhappy and sick and stuff. Like it's cool. Right. Yeah, it's really fun. I've enjoyed it. Yeah, and Farthest Frontier is just really chill. It's like Banished and Anno mixed together. It's like it's got like the building of Anno, like on that grid. So you're trying to like get.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah, you're trying to get little districts and neighborhoods built up and buffing like each other based on like desirability and shit like that. But then you also have to manage the logistics of your industry getting to the places that it needs to. And then it's got all like
game is this? Sorry?
It's got all the survival stuff of Banished,
Farthest Frontier,
crop rotations, seasons, like all that shit. So yeah, it's good. It's fun, and it looks nice
Banished
too.
Sort of city, Banished Anno city builder based from the Grim Dawn. Grim Dawn, the Diablo.
Oh, I saw this.
Yeah. That's nice. It's really nice.
Builder.
Yeah, it's good.
Weird to change over such a different genre.
No, they've done good though. It seems good. I think if they keep adding stuff to it and everything as well, it'll be real nice. It's good.
I mean, also I saw you playing a lot of Plate Up that launched this week.
Man, I've been playing
our game.
I've been playing a lot of Plate Up. It's fantastic though. Like I mean, when we played it, genuinely, I had such a good time. But I've enjoyed playing it since with all sorts of different people. I've been playing more recently with Hafu and her husband, who are both like bona fide pro gamers. And that's an experience, but it's a 5-star experience. I mean, we were winning like left, right, and center. It was crazy. We had all these systems set up. They take it very seriously. It's been really fun.
She's got a Wikipedia page.
What, Hafu?
Yeah.
Well, she's a big deal. She's a procaster and all sorts of stuff.
She's a big gamer, big time. She was like WoW Arena, played Diablo like competitively,
Bloodline
Hearthstone, everything. Yeah,
and Hearthstone.
Yeah.
And she's more recently, I think Team Fight Tactics is the one.
Shifted out of the old Hearthstone.
Yeah, which I mean, I think a lot of people have. It's a different scene now for sure, but the game arguably is not as big as it once was either. It's still churning out expansions and
I think this is why people are looking at Magic again.
Yeah.
Which is why P-Flax and there's a sort of bit of a groundswell around Magic Gathering.
Let me say something. I got back into it because when I was on holiday, that's all I could play.
Right. You were desperate.
Yeah, there was.
I have had a few people getting into it. I mean, the thing is, for me, it's too expensive. Really, it's like Hearthstone times 2 or 3. It feels like just so costly to buy all the packs, and they're so quick as well. I know this sounds stupid, but it feels like since the last time I played it, there's been like 6 or 7 expansions. Like,
there have been a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, it's taken me a while to get into
keep up with games like that
and reading and stuff like that. But I think the most fun thing about it is creating. Like I stream it, and we'll build a deck with chat. So we'll come up with a
Right.
theme and we'll sort of build a deck and see how it does. So everybody's kind of invested in it. It's just fun, and there's so many. Like, it's not a game I get frustrated at losing. Like, I don't know why. The only game that I really get angry about is Dota. We've spoken about this before, but I don't really get frustrated when I lose in pretty much any other game. Occasionally in Tarkov, I'll get a little annoyed with myself mainly, or with like the nature of Tarkov. If I get shot from across the map, I'm like, fuck it, hell.
Yeah,
it's not really anything you can do about
Tarkov
it. But,
is kind of rage-inducing at times for sure.
especially if you
I
lose
feel
stuff.
the same way. In fact, I feel almost the opposite. You're actually really right about this. When I lose in certain games, I get really salty. But so for this week, Ben invited me to a tournament for one of these miniatures games that we play, which is the Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones miniatures game, right? And partly because the new House of the Dragon is the new HBO show. It's the new. I mean, Game of Thrones is the biggest show on TV, right? The House of the Dragon is supposed to be, a very different story that's due very shortly, I think.
Are you excited by the idea of more Game of Thrones, given what happened last time?
I am, actually. Because
I'm dreading it. Same with this fucking Lord of the Rings thing and all the rest of it.
Lord of the Rings thing.
Yeah, it's like a new Lord of the Rings thing. It's going to be shit.
No, I'm hyped. I'm really hyped now, actually. Anyway, I went to this thing, and so Ben was like, yeah, there's only 3 of us, so it would be good if there was a 4th. So I was like, okay. So
nice
nice
invite.
Yeah,
nice
that's nice. Well, we scoured the earth looking for somebody who could meet our high standards. We came up empty, unfortunately, and, well, you just happened to be here.
And yours was the last number.
We do need a 4th. So reluctantly, we'd like to invite you.
So we drove out to this village called Iron Acton, which is in about 10 miles out of Bristol. I didn't know where we were going. I just thought it was around the corner. So it's about a sort of 25-minute drive, or half an hour, actually, when we were because the bridges were all closed for some reason. Anyway, got there, boiling hot night. It's at like the local village hall, okay? And I feel like I haven't been to a village hall for fucking ages. And they were like the guy was waiting for us, and he'd set up 2 tables. But there was like down the other end of the village hall, there was some other folks doing other board games, right? And other games, but there were only about sort of 5 or 6 of them, and they were playing some old like Bolt Action, I think, or some World War II stuff. And occasionally one of them would come round, and you say, "Oh, what you playing then?" And we'd be like, "Oh, it's the Game of Thrones miniatures games." I'd never heard of it. Never heard of it. No one had ever heard of Game of Thrones, and they'd
never heard of Game of Thrones.
Never heard of Game of Thrones, and
Never heard of. Wait,
I know.
I mean, not having heard of the board game, fair enough.
Yeah, yeah. I thought. Sorry, that's what I thought you meant. That they
never heard of the actual universe.
These
but they
guys,
were fascinated.
man.
They were like, "Oh, this looks cool. Tell me about it." And so we were going to play 2 games, one against each other, but we kept getting interrupted by local old men.
Yeah,
so much that we couldn't fucking make any progress.
What era is this? Is this ancient? Is it? Is it medieval? No, it's Game of Thrones. Sorry, you're gonna have to run that by me again. Game of Thrones? Never heard of it, mate. Never heard of it. Game of Thrones.
But they got knights in armor and dragons.
That's
so,
what. So it's a fantasy setting, is it? Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Or is it magic and wizards?
No, there's
not
there's
really.
no magic and wizards.
So
no,
it's not. It's like low fantasy then, is it? What rule set are you using?
Well, he couldn't really get into his head that it was low fantasy. At one point, I gave him the rule book to hope he would go away.
How can it be low fantasy if there's dragons in it? This doesn't make any sense. This does make no sense. I've never heard of a Game of Thrones. Where's the throne?
that's the kind of thing we were dealing with. But
man.
no, it was fun. I only managed to get 1 game, but it was weird being in a little village hall and
you know why they haven't heard of Game of Thrones, Lewis? Not just because they're old, because I'm pretty sure even my mum has heard of Game of Thrones. These guys, and I remember when I used to do wargaming a lot, they are only into one thing. They're actually 2 things: real ale and wargaming. And that's it.
Real
they
ale.
really don't care about anything else. It's not that they're being dismissive. They live in a bubble where all they care about really is their miniatures, which means an interest in history quite often. And, that's it. And I don't think they use any modern technology or watch much television or anything. They just live in a bubble, and that's their thing. A lot of them have another very boring hobby like woodworking or something like that, which isn't exactly thrilling. And that's it. They've got a very peaceful existence. I think it's very, very British. That sort of picking a hobby, and that's it. That's my thing. I know lots of people like that. They have one interest.
Yeah,
and
like it's like those guys that build those radios at home, right? And they talk
ham
to like,
radios.
ham
The
radios,
ones we were talking about the other week. Yeah.
I have noticed that these things are all adjacent to the train set in the loft. You know, it's very close to that. You know, it's a step away from that is Napoleonic kind of era miniatures wargaming. You know, and then close to another one. You know, that's a step away from bolt action, which is a step away from Warhammer. Everyone's, you know, slightly along that curve somewhere, and you'd think we'd all be friends, but no, we don't really have. All four of those groups are very distinct, and stay apart from each other. It's kind of weird. And there's definitely an age aspect to it. I always wonder what would we do when we're old, but you know, I just feel like Warhammer's been around long enough that, you know,
you wonder what we're gonna do when we're old.
To dads,
I'm old now. I'm doing the stuff. I'm doing all the things.
All right.
I don't think you can call yourself old if you have a baby. I think, you know, you're gonna have to wait until your kids are old enough that you can say, well, mine are all grown up now. That's when you're old.
I suppose. I can't imagine that I'm going to be doing much different to what I'm doing now, though. Like,
I people ask me all the time, what are you going to do after streaming? I'm like, please don't ever end. Like, I don't want this to...
I don't think it has to, though. This comes up a lot. But, like, I mean, feasibly, even if only, like, 20 people were watching your stream, you could still stream. It doesn't matter.
Probably still do.
Yeah.
Yeah, might as well share it with everyone. Can you explain to me what real ale is, P-Flax? Do you actually even know?
Yeah. So when you talk about like real ale, what you're talking about is not like beer from a big brewery or something like that. It's generally going to be called something like the Weasel's Mittens, you know, and it's very sort of strong tasting ale. It's from a pub that does ales, doesn't have football on the telly. Real ale drinkers would be the kind of men that you would see wearing trousers that are patched up. They have bushy beards. They enjoy folk music or 1970s classic prog rock and stuff like that.
Yes.
They're into history. They're into local architecture and nature. They might go hiking from time to time. They may use a bicycle. Their car is very old looking and beaten up. They're kind of stuck in their ways, a little bit opinionated about sort of things. And they're mostly, I would suggest... not conservative, but certainly old-fashioned in some of their views, perhaps. But a lot of them are also kind of hippie-ish. They're sort of, I'd say, a gentle left-leaning. They make dad jokes. They eschew the modern world. The zeitgeist is a mystery to them. And real ales tend to be much more musty. There's a strong flavor when you drink a really strong real ale that you drunk this out of a used ashtray, but that's part of the flavor. And
is that the yeast?
I don't know.
Leave it in?
This is stereotyping. If you are a young man or young woman and you are into real ale, and this does not describe you, congratulations. I'm sure you're as much a novelty in those communities as I would be, because you know when they ask you, well, what do you do? I play video games for a living. Doesn't compute. It just, you know, it's not the sort of thing that goes into their heads. So, you know,
this is the similar thing
stereotypical, but I'd say that's
the real ales always like the craft brews and stuff, especially like in Britain, have kind of funny names too, or can have funny names.
Absolutely. Right? There's a famous Twickenham one called the Naked Ladies, which is very popular. They're all things like that.
Are they all micro breweries?
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, for example, if you were to drink Fuller's. You know, that's not going to count. That's like That's like drinking Budweiser and claiming, "Oh, I'm into I know my beers." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it has to be the Fox's Nipple. It has to be something like that, brewed by one guy in a shed.
Yeah.
The more, and also this is not the same. By the way, this is not the same. People out there wondering, and perhaps even Lewis Brindley himself. This is not the same as all those hipstery craft ales and shit like that. This is different.
Yeah.
They've horned in on this racket.
This is like bathtub brews and stuff. Yeah.
And these are guys for whom the camera guide is like the Bible. You know, camera meaning the campaign for real ale. They'll sort of give a camera rating.
Yeah.
For a pub. So yeah, like you go look up the website. So 57 unique ales are on offer here. My favorite pick would be
hell.
the Witch's Chuff. Or
the Witch's Chuff.
Or mayhap the Queen's Chebs, which is an excellent ale.
I love
very
some of
British
those
sounding.
names. Yeah.
The Naked Ladies is a statue complex with a rockery and water cascade in the gardens of York House, Twickenham.
It's unbelievable. If you ever come to Twickenham, I'll take you to see it because it's near York House, which is like the council building, if you like. You can use it for weddings and stuff. Like we used it when we renewed our vows recently. From like the Twickenham Riverside is very nice, very very gentle area. It runs from Church Street in Twickenham all the way down to Kew and beyond. And it's basically walkable, very green when you're out there, especially when you get towards the Ham side of Richmond. You would not know you were that close to a big city. All you can see is trees and fields. There's a fucking field with cows in it, and it's right there in London.
Imagine it was signed like that as well. You know, like those brown signs, like heritage or like points of interest. Fucking field with cows in it.
Field of cows. And there's all really good pubs along there. Loads of people go walking. There's lots of people pottering around on boats and things. There's a ferry, which is literally a boat that you could fit maybe 8 people in comfortably. It just runs over and up and down the river all day. That's on Marble Hill. But so York House has this very large garden, very beautiful. It's quite simple. A lot of the area is not over fancified.
Yeah.
You go to some places, it's all really elaborate topia. Like this is much more played down. It's like a big English country garden, more like.
Marble Hill.
Yeah, so at the bottom end of that, there's a very.
Is it called that because of these marble statues?
I don't know, maybe
because the statues are like Italian marble,
right? But it feels like someone's created this. It's a monstrosity. In all honesty, it really is. It's enormous. It's completely out of keeping with everything else in the area. So you come into this garden, it's like green hedgerows, of course they're green, high hedgerows all around it, and it's dividing it up into quadrants, little fountain. It's all very peaceful. There's benches and squirrels and pigeons. And then at one end, there's this huge fucking wall of Italian marble, this fountain thing. And it's like winged pegasi and naked women with spears, everything. It's so over the top. And it feels bizarrely out of place. When we first saw it, we were like, my God, like we were taken aback. Because it really is shockingly out of place and overstated. It's like you go into someone's house and their living room is like the most over the top thing you could imagine. It's like that, sort of takes your breath away. Then you're sort of like, wow, yes, this is impressive, but I'm impressed at how hideous it is. And, how much effort must have gone into making this thing. But it is quite funny to see.
Yes. So I went there's a bar in the bottom of Park Street in Bristol called Java. And upstairs they have a lounge that you can rent out for events. And I went in and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I found out it was when the Mauritania, which was this cruise, like Titanic-style cruise liner, was torn apart in Bristol. They took all of the furnishings from like the first class bar and stuff, and all the wooden bits, all the chandeliers,
right,
all the everything, and put it in this, like built a room in the upstairs of this place in Bristol, and it just feels like so like a film set. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't. It feels so out of place.
So I think that's the thing. If you're gonna have like if you go to Italy and you walk around a lot of the places there where there's a lot of galleries and statues and things like that, everything's like that. So these huge statues just become part of that. But if you have a completely out of place vast statue, it doesn't matter how good it is. It's like you don't expect to see it there, and it seems kind of weird. It's almost offensive that it's put there. So like, what the fuck is this thing doing here? Too much. It's too much in that milieu.
Milieu.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to. It's like D&D though. It's like you're in a set, which is kind of, but you have to kind of like suspend your disbelief. You're not comfortable. You don't feel like you're in the right. You feel like you're in some fake thing rather than something that really is grand. Like I think if you stood at the bottom of the pyramids, you'd be like, yeah, wow, this is genuine and cool. And
right.
I'm actually.
But you're in the
place.
desert amongst pyramids. But if you saw a pyramid in the middle of Bristol, you'd think, what the fuck is this thing doing here? It feels bizarre. Although it would be pretty awesome. Full-size pyramid.
Well, one of the biggest pyramids Bob was talking to me about was the flipping one in Texas, the sporting goods pyramid.
Doesn't count. It doesn't count.
The biggest pyramid in the world is in Texas for a sporting goods store.
Like you can't build one in the modern age with modern materials and be like, we got the biggest pyramid right over here.
Well, it's not Texas. It's in Memphis, isn't it? Memphis, Tennessee.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Well, we got the biggest goddamn pyramid you ever seen right here.
Yeah, that's right. It's the 10th tallest pyramid in the world, actually.
Oh.
10th?
It's
20,000.
Well, hell, that ain't good enough for me. I gonna build the biggest. You buy all them damn pyramids.
So it was a 20,000 seat arena, but it got bought by the Bass Pro Shop megastore.
Of course.
Of course
it
it did,
now Bass Pro Shop pyramid. It's just so bizarre. It's so bizarre.
It is.
It's almost like the biggest tourist attraction in Memphis, Tennessee.
I do think it's interesting when you look at America. I would say, and I think most people would agree, it doesn't even really need to be said, but I'll say it anyway. Its biggest draw is its natural beauty.
Yeah.
As a nation, the geography of it is so unbelievable and so beautiful. And you've got obviously things like the Grand Canyon and Niagara Falls and all this kind of stuff. And whilst it has all been over touristified, a lot of it, you've still got the national parks and things which are unbelievable.
Yeah.
But people don't always want to have to schlep their way out to these things. They'd like to see something interesting and touristy, but then they're reduced to, they don't have like Lord's or Big Ben or any of the famous buildings of the world. They have a giant fucking bass fishing pyramid that, well, we're going to go see the pyramid. We've got to see something because you're on holiday.
Yeah.
You can't just sit around by the pool. You got to go see something. So they've replaced sort of history tourism with world's biggest hot dog building tourism.
Yeah, the world's biggest ball of twine.
Right, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even though that is not something that anybody should really have an interest in seeing.
The gigantic teapot.
Right. It's like in the absence of anything actually good worth seeing.
But this stuff is very photogenic though too, right? Yeah. That's the other funny thing about it all. Like it's actually almost leaned into our modern world, right? Like because I assume that this sort of tourism started happening when people were taking pictures of stuff and sending postcards, right? But it's just become more and more exaggerated.
Well, look at like a lot of the attractions in Vegas on the Strip as well are all like, recreations. Like they've got like an Eiffel Tower, they've got pyramids, they've got, you know what I mean? Like all these like all these like big famous
grandiose
places, that make like a cameo appearance in Vegas of all places. Like it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I love that. Like you take a picture and you're like, "Where am I?" I'm.
But then it's funny to think as well that a lot of Americans don't have passports and will never leave their country, and that's like the closest they'll ever get to seeing some of these.
I don't need to.
I know a bunch of the. But again, the thing is with that is where are they going to go? You're going to travel 3,000 miles if you're on the coast to get to Europe. That's if you're on the East Coast. If you're on the West Coast, imagine taking a 6,000-mile trip for your holiday.
It's
when
weird.
You could just go to the Caribbean or the Bahamas or whatever. Or then what's your option? Canada, which is like, you're not going to see anything particularly different there.
No.
Or
and
Mexico.
I think if you're American, I don't even necessarily think you need a passport to enter Canada by
No, you don't.
land.
No, you don't.
So it's pretty easy. It's a weird mentality in North America. My parents have this, and a lot of my friends have it as well, where if I were to say, hey, come to Europe, like come visit us or whatever, it's like, oh no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
It takes too long.
Yeah.
There's too many
they're not
flights
used
and
to
stuff.
That sort of travel.
Yeah. But if I went to say Toronto in Canada, which if my parents wanted to come and visit us, if we were visiting Toronto, where they live now, to come visit us, they would have to drive in their car for like 6 hours to get there. 6 hours plus.
But they're used to
problem.
That kind of travel.
They would be
they're
like,
used
yep,
to that kind of travel.
We'll see you there. Like it's no problem whatsoever. They'll hop into their car and they will drive 12, 15, 25 hours if it means that they're in their car driving. Like if there was like a big bridge over the Atlantic Ocean, they'd be in Europe all the damn time with their car.
Yeah.
It's very safe and it's what they know. I honestly really have like respect for people who go on holiday to places like Petra or like even like the Taj Mahal and things. I mean, these are obviously very standard wonders, tourist wonders of the world, even like the pyramids, right? Like I feel like from what I've experienced, even just going to the Eiffel Tower and seeing what a tourist trap it is with the scammers and the botherers and all the poor people everywhere, it's horrible, right? I know what it would be like. So I just find it so stressful to think about going and dealing with all the crap around those, dealing with that, you know, going to a country that doesn't have infrastructure, that doesn't necessarily have many tourists. Like I was talking to TJ, who's climbed to Mount Everest base camp, and he actually climbed the Lhotse Peak, which is the one next to Everest or whatever. He's a studio guy.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
I don't even know how. Like, first of all, I don't even know how you do that. And second of all, I don't know how you get the gumption to do it in the first place.
No, but I mean, why would you go to that area and not climb Everest? Why would you climb its little brother?
Well, he did Everest already. He was just flexing with the climb of the little brother.
I see.
Well, but you hear all of the horror stories about Everest and the trash and the queues.
Awful.
I think it was like busy and stuff. Like, I don't know. Like, you just hear about like how awful it is. But no, I mean, I just don't want to go to the pyramids or any of these landmarks really, because I just feel like I could just go on Google Street View, look at it from the road outside, and be like, yeah, that's probably what it looks like. I could imagine having to not deal with the blazing heat and the like trying to get around and being sold a carpet. I just don't need it. I don't need it.
I mean, you know what? I think a lot of people are worried about going on holiday because, I mean, I know that a friend of my mum's has never been abroad and doesn't have a passport. And her reason is she wouldn't know what to take. Like, she would not, she's completely unprepared.
Right.
And I think it's especially a very English attitude, I think. We imagine that everybody in England, because we're so close to Europe, we're perfectly happy to travel. But people generally go to a couple of places.
Yeah.
Mostly Spain, mostly places where all the other British people are going. Or Portugal the same.
Yeah.
That's a very typical holiday. We've just have a seaside holiday somewhere where it's guaranteed to be sunny. That's pretty much it. And we expect English pubs over there and English food, and everybody should speak English. Because we're an island. And America is, whilst not an island, I think has the mentality of being an island because there's nothing else really near it apart from Canada and Mexico. And once you've been to those, like, well, I'll just fucking stay here. So I think we often laugh at the American attitude to travel, but I bet most Brits are the same. They don't really travel apart from to a couple of places.
I think even I was reading a bit of Agatha Christie recently because I downloaded all the audiobooks and I was listening to them while I was like, I don't know, just listening to them. And
so you've been listening to a lot of Agatha Christie recently.
Well, I read Death on the Nile. I listened to it on the audio.
Right.
There we go.
And I was like interested because, and I looked into Agatha Christie a bit, and she was obviously, you know, she was writing these books between sort of the pre Second World War, post Second World War period, and before the Second World War, Egypt was this very popular place to go for sort of rich English people as a holiday, and there were all these very nice luxury sort of colonial era hotels in Egypt. It was a hot place. It was quite luxurious. It was seen as like this destination for the time. And she spent quite a lot of time there. And she got big into archaeology as a result and ended up marrying this archaeologist and going around doing archaeology, which is because she did another book about Agatha Christie. One of them was on a archaeological dig site, and she obviously did Murder on the Orient Express, which was a classic one. But these are all things she'd done, you know. So she was basing her, you know, books grounded in and the books are full of details of these types of, you know, things at the time, which feel authentic. But I know it's obviously a fiction, but it's a very much a comfortable village hall. You know, Agatha Christie's famous for her Englishness and, you know, the cozy tease around the doilies and, you know, book clubs and everything like this, you know, gossiping people, going to the church, you know, just the English country life, right? But it's also English holiday life in a sense, you know, for the more wealthy classes back in the day. And it's just really fascinating to see how honestly little has changed, you know, especially with I was reading one of the books that was written in like 1930 or whatever, and it was like this village with all gossipy old women watching people and doing stuff and coming back and forth, and it was just like fucking today. It's like nothing has changed in 100 years. It feels like, you know, growing up in a village, it just showed me so much. And going to this village hall, it was just like nothing's changed. You know, there's still old men playing chess or playing a different game in the village hall, you know, on a Tuesday night.
It's funny to think, like, when we're older, old men in the village hall playing a game, they'll be playing, like, Valorant or something, you know?
Yeah.
They'll have VR headsets.
Yeah. I can't believe he fucking headshot me. I got head eyes again.
Unbelievable.
Oh man.
There is. I always think this is a strange thing though. Like it seems like at a certain age you get interested in gardening, or you get interested in I don't know. Like do you know what I mean? Like different like history.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's because you have more history.
I'm much more interested in history now than I ever was, like as a kid or whatever. I enjoyed it enough learning about it at school or whatever, but not much. But now, like I'll seek it out. Like if I see something or like I hear about somebody, I'll look up like some history or watch a documentary or whatever. Like I'm a lot more interested in it now.
Down historical Wikipedia articles for hours.
I'm kind of like it's ruined me a bit because I actually prefer watching factual stuff now than I prefer watching fictional stuff. Like I used to really like.
Here's the thing. Did you watch the Woodstock 99 documentary?
I meant to watch it actually. Yeah, I've seen it on Netflix. It looks good. I'll give it a watch.
I've watched part one. I've watched part one. I haven't finished it. It is really, really. If you watch the Fire Festival documentary, which is one of my favorite documentaries I
haven't watched
seen.
that either. Actually.
Oh, dude, it's so
That's
good.
such a good one. I mean, the thing is, Fire Festival is so different to Woodstock in a sense. Like, Woodstock is interesting because it happened in 1999. I was obviously 16. I was someone who was maybe a couple years too young, but around about the age that loved those bands: Limp Bizkit, Korn, Linkin Park, Rage Against the Machine.
He had the frosted tips, the khakis.
To me, it was the worst festival lineup I've ever seen. Like, I honestly would have been horrified, especially Korn, for Christ's sake. Everybody being into Korn. What the fuck?
Korn were
when I was 16, they were the
90s,
biggest band in the world. You know, they were huge, and I realized, yes,
it was like a new metal. It all seemed to spawn off the back of wrestling being very popular at the time as well, right?
But that's the issue: is the people at it, the people at that festival that are all into those bands. Turns out, massive cunts.
Yeah,
who knew?
Well,
but this is it. I really feel like I was that ragey teenager at that age, right? Like I was a kid who'd watched Fight Club and I'd watched American Pie.
Right.
I'd watched. You almost had this. They talk about it a bit in the documentary, but this generation was really familiar to me because I was that kind of awkward teenager who wanted to go and smash things up, right? And I think like. It didn't take much at that age to make me feel like it was funny or cool or the right thing to do to just vandalize stuff and smash stuff up. But what I want to know
really
is strange
why
way.
are we like? In my opinion, our generation was the first really angry generation.
Yeah,
like it seems like we're just furious when we were younger. Like really, really different. If you look at the original Woodstock, that was us. When we would have been that was our parents when they were our age, right? That would have been their big festival. But it was not anything like Woodstock 99. And the organizers in the show put it down to the lineup, the music lineup that they've chosen. But if you look at the difference in one generation from the 1969 hippies and other festival goers to the woo, yeah, woo,
Chad
bros,
Chad and his bros turning up.
Yeah,
to
literally these guys,
99.
the backwards caps, no top.
They're the Proto-Bros, though. I don't think these are the bros we have now. I think these are the
Proto-Bros.
Those bros that you described still exist, by the way. They're timeless.
But
they're
now
they're
bros. Chad 1000. I'm saying back then they were Chad 101.
They've morphed. The Chads have morphed, and as you said from the Woodstock era. But again, I think the first Woodstock was like a rebellion against Vietnam and these other wars that were going on, and against violence. Right? It was this great pacifist. Peace and love movement of look, let's make love not war, the whole thing, and the music was different too. But I guess like by the time the mid 90s was going on and the late 90s, it was a different generation, and this is the people at Woodstock were young, very young, like 16 to 18 to 20. People are like, oh, they're messing around, but they're just stupid kids, right? They're not like actively terrorist cells, do you know what I mean? Or like they're not, some sort of insurrectionists,
right?
So some sort of deep-seated people who have a belief. They're just kids who think it's funny to smash stuff up. I think it's cool to smash stuff up.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was, and I feel like if I was in America at this time, I could very easily have, me and my mates at school could have very easily been in that at that concert, you know, setting fire to stuff.
Jesus.
And not caring, you know?
Yeah, I guess. I haven't really thought about what I was like at that age, but I think I would have been a complete dickhead.
Oh,
but I wouldn't have been one of the
teens. Like, if you were like, say, like 16 to 19 around that time, yeah, you would be a dickhead for sure.
I smoked a bit of weed and I just chilled out, and I just basically was sad I didn't have a girlfriend. That was pretty much my teenage years, and I didn't have any fucking money, like no money. Whereas I look at these kids and I don't know. They're just looked
as bad.
They just looked like awful people. A lot of them. A lot of them didn't even look like they were just kids who were misunderstood and kind of having a hard time. They looked like they had come there to fuck shit up and ruin the whole thing. And they were like actual bros. And they were coming out of the fucking woodwork, just frat boys.
You do have those frat boy bros culture still happening in a major way, even now, or very common. I hope it's less than it was, but it definitely is like ingrained in American culture in a different way to here, though. You have, I mean, when I was at uni, there were no frat houses and no
it's not a very UK thing.
No like culture around that, you know. But I'm positive it's still a major.
Oh, it is 100%.
Oh yeah.
College life in America.
But these aren't underprivileged kids. If you're going to college,
these are kids with some disposable income or means.
And the festival wasn't
to do
cheap.
Things, yeah.
So it wasn't like a peace and love just turn up. You know, in the original Woodstock or whatever. I don't know how much it cost, but it might have even been free. Who knows? But it certainly wasn't like this was just some
corporate event.
Yeah, this was pretty sold out in terms of like trying to make money off fucking everything. And I think that kind of changes the vibe as well. But I said to Mrs. F, wouldn't this happen at any festival with that lineup? She said, we have festivals all the time and it never gets like this. I think Mrs. F just thinks Americans are insane, and she may be right. They're a bit crazy.
Well, I think so, but also I think like there were a lot of other factors in the documentary they talk about, like, you know, they didn't put enough security in, and the security they did put in were just
shitting themselves
inside, just the bullies. You know, they got the school bullies as the security, and then they got the fucking some guys to like price gouge the hell out of any of the food. There was no clean water. There were no toilets. Like, it was just hell. It was just a trash dump of shit. Garbage.
But the sad thing is, I think I did feel bad for pretty much everybody involved, really. In the first episode, I'm thinking, God, what a shame, you know. I mean, there were some cynical decisions made by the guys running it. Their argument was, we have to make money from this. And the problem was the way they went about it was kind of shady.
Yeah.
But when you look at Firefest, I wanted everything about it to fail. I wanted everyone going to fail and have a horrible time because they were all awful people. They were all like influencers.
Oh, right.
And they were all just dickheads. And the sort of guys organizing it were dickheads. Like, everyone involved. It was like those
I think
frat
that's the
bros.
most cathartic thing.
Yeah,
about,
like the frat
Firefest.
bros organized it. We're going to have our own fucking festival. We're going to get all these big acts. We're going to buy a fucking island. It's going to be so hyped, dude. This is who's going to be there. You're not going to believe it. Everybody gets a martini when they land. And then everybody gets a margarita when they take a foot off the boat. Blah, blah, blah. All this kind of stuff. It was all like...
Didn't it like really... not go ahead, though? Wasn't it just like a big...
it went ahead.
Oh, it did? Oh.
Sadly, it went ahead. Yeah, anyway, watch the documentary. I was glad it failed.
Watch Firefest.
I was waiting for it to fail. But this one I was rooting for.
It's a different vibe. Woodstock is definitely like... I feel like, from watching the documentary, like, no one died, right? At Woodstock, like, no. And there were 250,000 people there, and they were fires and smashing and riots and crazy crushes, you know, and like loads of people moshing. I mean, obviously there are plenty of injuries, and a lot of sexual assaults and stuff happened, you know, which is that was the worst thing, I think, about the documentary, just the amount of like kind of gross, creepy stuff that the frat boys were doing, and but it felt like it was just such I don't know, just really, just people weren't being careful, I think, but there was no security as well, and people were very drunk and a lot of drugs. Like, there just wasn't enough like actual protections put in place to stop people going absolutely fucking crazy.
Man, oh man.
But yeah.
Yeah, I gotta watch that.
Wild.
I'm interested in like all of that stuff for sure, so I will watch it. The Fire Festival.
I think Fire Festival, you're like rooting for it to fail, whereas Woodstock is really sad.
Yeah.
It's kind of thing. But even so, it's something I didn't know about at all.
Same. I mean, I don't remember it at all.
I remember hearing about it, like at the time, sort of thing. But not much. Like, I think at the time it was reported to be kind of nuts as well. But I never really looked into it or anything. Like it didn't resonate that much.
I love these deep dives into these events, though, as well. I think sometimes, obviously, even the documentaries don't cover everything. And there's probably a couple of books about
I'm sure,
it. But yeah, it's definitely great to just... I just don't know about all these cool bits of history, and you're constantly seeing them. There's so much history as well, right?
It's weird, though. Like, the music in the 90s was different, right? Especially like at the start of the 90s, but then even going throughout the 90s, I feel like music was just so kind of dark and aggressive in the 90s, wasn't it?
It did feel like
more
it
so
was,
than it is now. Like it was,
yeah. I mean, now it's all. I feel like these kind of things would just be dance music.
No, and like the elements of this exist, but like it's all. The scenes are a lot more fragmented than they would be in the 90s, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that's what it is, right? Like we could all listen to whatever we want and everything goes.
Yeah.
Like there are still some things that dominate, but they're not, even though they don't dominate, like, the wet ass pussy and stuff like this, like only lasts for much less time and is much more, segmented. Sure, you still have like superstars like Lady Gaga or whatever, but they don't feel like they're as... I guess back in the day, in the 90s, we got all of our music on a couple of radio stations at MTV or whatever. That was they were such taste setters. Whereas now, there's just a bigger pool.
I think there's been a bigger broadening of identity now as well. Because I feel like you can be the punk guy who kind of likes 80s synth and but likes to dress it like in a certain way or whatever. Like there's like it's a lot more broad than it was. Like, I feel like in the 90s, you got into a group that listened to a certain thing and you just really embraced that. And that was it, like you wouldn't do anything else.
I mean, also, I think especially back then, you dressed a certain way and had a haircut a certain way based on what you listened to.
Yeah.
Like, certainly I wore a lot of flannel shirts and baggy jeans because I listened to a lot of grunge and wore my hair long over my face and looked as miserable as possible.
Yeah,
because that was the kind of music I listened to.
Oh my god, you're like the guy from Stranger Things, the creepy photo guy.
All right, yes, all right. I am like the creepy guy from Stranger Things. All right, fine, you've got it.
He came good.
It's like the third time you've worked that in. I don't even know who this character is. Let me look him up. Creepy guy, Stranger Things.
Well, Will Byers, his big brother, whatever his name is.
Murray Bauman.
I don't know.
Who is Jamie Campbell Bower? Murray Bauman.
Oh, no, not him. Not Murray Bauman.
It's me, Murray Bauman. Jerry.
So, by the way,
I haven't seen you in so long. Hi, Murray.
So for the first time, the prom, the proms, which is a very old school British thing where they do classical music.
Wank.
They did game music proms this week.
Get me out.
It's like a 2-hour concert. They've got like music from, Battlefield 2042,
get me out.
Shadow of the Colossus, Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy. Some people love that game music. Some of it is real epic, good music as well. So yeah, that's available for next month if you want to listen to the old game music. The old proms. Music? No.
Hey, I'm going to a local parade today called the Battle of Flowers. Have you ever heard of this? Have I ever told you about it? It hasn't been on for 2 years because of COVID and restrictions and stuff, but it's back in full force this year. Local groups of people put together these big parade floats and decorate them with flower petals, mostly. And they theme them, and then they parade them up and down the avenue for 2 hours, and they're judged at the end, and there's a winner, and everybody gets to watch this happen, and it's good fun. There's like a like a Miss America pageant. There's like the queen of the Battle of Flowers. Who appears on a float and is selected throughout the year and stuff. It's like all these like old.
There's like a Miss Battle and a Mr.
Miss Battle. That's it. Yeah, and Mr. Battle. There's no Mr. Battle. Mr. Battle is normally some celebrity that's flown in from the UK. Like but it would be like like Will Young or like one of the guys from EastEnders or whatever, like the current EastEnders heartthrob or something like that,
Gareth Gates.
Yeah, and they just kind of stand up there, like Henry Cavill, but I don't think they'd be able to get Henry Cavill now. Because he's too prime time, right? He's too big.
Well, I don't know. He's fairly available.
He might be.
Simon Clark saw him at the Warhammer World in Nottingham.
Oh, well, there you go.
Recently,
so it would be something like that. But my son was like insistent that he wanted like a Hawaiian shirt with matching shorts, like to wear to the
okay,
and also insistent that I got a matching shirt like to his, so I have to wear a Hawaiian shirt as well. It's going to be like 30 degrees today. We have a 1-year-old. Like, I don't know how any of this is going to work, but it's because we're just going to be sitting in like the blazing hot sun for 2 hours, like during like the sun's prime time, watching floats on a parade and
with flowers.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
sounds wholesome.
I think it'll be all right. Yeah.
Yeah, enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's very villagey country. That's very like local town.
That's
isn't
it.
That stuff.
Yeah, it all feeds back into
It does.
your ideal local town. Maybe there'll be some people playing like Warhammer board games somewhere as well in the town hall.
I don't know about that.
And sipping on Fox's Knob or whatever the local ale is, the local craft.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that sounds exactly like what it is.
Yeah.
All right, well there you go. That's Triforce. That was a good one today. Thank you for joining us, everyone. It's good to be back.
Yeah,
it's good to have us all back together. I've missed it.
I know. There's some more summer vacations coming up soon, but not as bad as like what was it, like 3 weeks or 4 weeks almost with all the trips and stuff.
Yeah.
We'll be back around in future weeks. So see you
we
soon,
need to
everyone.
do some cover, we'll chuck some more mailbags at you. Maybe.
Oh, baby.
People love the mailbag
People do
episodes
love
more than
the
these
mailbags.
ones.
I've got like hundreds of emails to get
Oh, good.
Right.
Save them.
Good
Save
stuff.
All right. They're safe.
We'll make use of them.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Peace.
Bye.